All right, we will go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. I will now call to order the February 2025 Crime and Gun Violence Prevention Task Force meeting. Thank you all for being here tonight. We'll go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and start with roll.
We could start from the far end. Thank you. If we could start from the far end, just say your name and I will mark you present.
Eugene Swenson. Keith Rice.
Jalen Drury.
Leticia Sessoms.
James Cullen.
Sarah Ray.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the approval of our January 27th work session meeting minutes. We should have all received them in our email last week. Is there any changes to the meeting minutes? All right. Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda tonight?
Motion to adopt the agenda as written.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right, so our first item on the agenda tonight is the implementation of the recommendations from the Harvard Bloomberg study. We all received that in our email last week following a previous discussion during the work session about the importance of us knowing what studies have been done in the city thus far and what else is going on in the city. And so we'll first start off with a presentation by our chief, Jenkins.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right, so what I have for you today, in particular, want to go over our current crime stats for year to date for 2025. So as you will see in the handout that was given, we break our city into three districts. First district being District 1, which is considered south side of the city, District 2, north side of the city, and then District 3 across the bridge going into Churchland. So historically, when we talk about our areas that are most affected by crime, we talk specifically about areas of Prentice Park, Craddock, sections of Brighton, and a few other neighborhoods where we have spillage over. And so in addition to that, we also talk about some of our areas where our public housing is also located. Those areas are Dale Homes and also the area of Southside Gardens. So when we talk about how that looks, we're talking about small pockets. We're not talking about entire neighborhoods where the whole neighborhood has 100% issues. We're talking about sometimes streets. We're talking about houses on streets where those entities are responsible for the vast majority of the problems caused in a particular area. So if we look at our first individual handout for District 1, what you'll see is that particular area for District 1 was, as of year to date, we are experiencing 11% reduction in overall crime for that particular area. Unfortunately, that area, in particular Prentice Park, did record our first homicide of the year. And so, again, we start talking about some of the challenges that are associated with that. Obviously, we have been working not only as a city, but as a police department to build relationships with the community in hopes of not only them understanding levels of trust, but also encouraging them to participate in coming forward when crimes happen within the city. These things obviously are challenges. They will continue to be challenges, not just for us, but across the country. And so when you start looking at things that we do within the community, things such as Coffee with a Cop, things such as community walks, and even our reset walks, they are not just opportunities for the police department to come out, but they are more intended for our community partners to actually come out and engage. When we have violent activity in our neighborhoods, everyone should be outraged about those things that happen. And when those things happen, it is incumbent upon all of us to band together to come out and look for solutions. This is, when police respond to crimes within a neighborhood, after their investigation is gone and the tape comes down, the neighborhood is still left to deal with the trauma and the remnants of that criminal activity. And so those are just a couple of the things that we're talking about as we relate to crime. Some of the presentations that you're going to hear about over the next several weeks and months are recommendations that were provided not only from included in our 2023 crime plan, but also as a result of the study from the Department of Health, the Bloomberg study, and a lot of these things are overlapping as it relates to the root causes of crime. By the time it makes it to the surface of where it's known to police and things of that nature, there are a lot of things that have happened well before it has gotten to that point. When you flip over to the next section, same area of District 1, you'll notice a 22% reduction in crime, specifically as it relates to property crime. Those crimes include burglaries, burglars to shed, shoplifting, larceny of motor plates, motor vehicle license plates, and motor vehicle parts. So why is that important? Because everything isn't necessarily related to what we talk about as a violent act. Those things that sometimes are status offenses, sometimes that cause us just as much issues within the community. Sometimes these offenses are related to individuals who are suffering from levels of substance abuse, looking for items that they can easily resell on the street. One of the things we experienced a tremendous uptick was after the tunnel tolls went in place, we started to see a tremendous amount of stolen license plates. And, again, obviously people are having difficulties with the tolls and fines and registering their vehicles, but still have to provide for their families, go to work, things of that nature. So it makes for a challenge because you literally have people going removing plates, and sometimes you even can track them going back and forth across and through the tunnel and things of that nature. And of course, that is a challenge for us as we work with the citizens to address that. So in District 1, overall crime, we experienced a 20% reduction overall year to date. So, that's something, and again, not, in my line of work, you don't want to, you take the good with the bad. So I knock on wood, I take it as it goes, and we're happy that we are making some progress. To date, this time last year, citywide, we were up to 4 homicides for the city of Portsmouth. Year to date right now, again, we've had that 1. And so that is something for us to be hopeful about as we continue to press forward. When we look at, move past and we look at District 2, District 2 encompasses our Old Town, Parkview, Shea Terrace, London Oaks, Mount Herman, in areas such as that. When you look at the crime overall, for violent crime, we're at a 43% reduction as it relates to crime. And then when we look at our property crime, we are at a 33% reduction. So huge numbers in that particular area. But when you start overlaying some of the things that are happening in that particular area, not just enforcement, but also the level of interaction that's going on We know that we have community-based organizations out working in those sections of the city. We have quite a few people, which you'll hear about later on through Ms. Matthews, through Portsmouth United, going out and doing some work, and then collectively with our other city departments that are getting out working in these areas. There's a lot of work that's being put into by the city and by others that are now starting to see some benefit, but we can only continue to push forward and look for other viable solutions. When we get to overall crime for District 2, right now we have a 35% overall reduction in crime. Moving on to District 3, which again is Churchland, our Churchland area of the city, Ebony Heights, River Shore, Swimming Point. Right now for violent crime, we're at a 14% reduction in violent crime. And for property crime, we are at a 50% reduction. And again, these are good numbers to start the year off with. Overall, for Churchland area, we're at a 44% reduction in crime across the board. And citywide, year to date, we're at a 31% reduction compared to this time last year. Now, again, there are a lot of factors we can relay into that. Again, not just enforcement, but we also have to remember we had some days of snow. We had some. It's been a little colder. So all these things. I mean, again, I'm a realist. I take it. I'm gonna have to take it on the chin when we're doing good, and take it on the chin when we're doing bad. So, but all of those things, whatever the reasons that the numbers are down, the calls for services are down, those things are to be celebrated. Hopefully, we're making some turning points for some of our citizens and getting them to work. A lot of effort is going on behind the scenes, but our areas that can historically continue to be the most challenging for us is where we need to spend the most amount of our time. And so as a police department, we are trying to be very surgical about how we spend our resources. We don't necessarily, and again, everyone deserves to see the police, understand that. But some areas are more victimized than others. And so there are particular areas where we need to spend more time because of when the absence of law enforcement or other entities in that particular area sometimes allows what we call the broken theory to come in. Sometimes the small broken window that goes unfixed for a period of time is an invitation for crime to start. And so what you've seen over the last couple of weeks is homeless encampments, things of that nature, and us taking an aggressive approach to address those particular things throughout the city. If they're left unchecked, they grow into a bigger problem, and unfortunately, it is something that we have to be vigilant about. So as a department, we are looking to partner with our community-based organizations, also our sister departments, to get resources to our most vulnerable folks, unhoused, homeless individuals within the city, but also make sure we're offering viable options for individuals. Even if you're arrested on a drug case, we're looking at seeing if that person is a viable option for drug court or something of that nature, to give them an alternative with some tools and a way back to just living normal and free of substances. So I know that Ms. Matthews has provided all of you all an opportunity to do a ride along. I really would encourage you to do that just to be able to see the city from a little different section. I think last year, as a city, we had well over 200,000 calls for service. And we're talking about a city just under 100,000 people. And so we're a very active city when it comes to EMS 911 calls for service and calls that relate to your police department. So I think it would be a good opportunity for you to come out and see that firsthand, but also see some of the challenges. We deal a tremendous amount with mental health. We spend a tremendous amount of time transporting individuals on emergency custody orders, but also temporary detention orders, sometimes across the state because of lack of beds and things of that nature. and mental health is a challenge for any community trying to find viable solutions for people struggling with issues. So that is one thing that we as a city must continue to look at as well. That will conclude my statements for this period. Does anybody have any questions of me? Yes, sir.
Chief, in social media recently, a lot of discussion was going on about two things. The first, probably the easier one to answer, would be someone complaining that they saw a car, patrol car running radar on 164. I believe that this is something that's intentional and that's been announced, but I think there's a good opportunity to educate folks about the need for increased visibility for patrols in high visibility spots like that and the fatalities that have been happening on 164. Just wonder if you could talk about that.
Yes, sir. So, oftentimes we get or I get questioned about levels of resources. Why is it important to have an officer on the interstate or something of that nature? As you'll notice, we don't spend a tremendous amount of time on 264. Our state partners have stepped up and really started enforcing the highway laws there. However, on 164, not as much, and we have a tremendous amount of traffic that transgresses the city on 164. We receive a tremendous amount of complaints about the speeds on 264, sometimes upwards of 80 and 90 miles per hour, in addition to the tractor trailer traffic that is there. And so it's important to be able to be visible on 164, in particular to decrease the speeds so that folks can get to their destination safely. But also, again, we're looking at this year addressing some of our overweight vehicles that tear up our roads and things of that nature, and ensuring that they have the proper permitting to be able to transfer their cargo from the ports to wherever their destination is. It's a necessity for us to be there. To be honest, I would like to spend more time on 164 because sometimes it mimics the Autobahn on 164. But we've been diligent with making sure we spend equal amounts of time on there, but also in our affected areas, because again, traffic stops sometimes are the most visible way for people to see the police. When those lights are on and you're pulled on the side of the road, you know the police are in your neighborhood.
Thank you. And the other one was, there's been a lot of discussion regarding a particular homeless encampment that a lot of people were talking about, and I understand that the police are kind of stuck in the middle of that one. You're the bad guys no matter what you do, but there was also a lot of misinformation that was out there, and I would just like to, I guess, to the extent possible, let people know where the police's role is in all of that.
Yes, sir. So as it relates to homelessness, the unhoused, unsheltered individuals, it is not illegal to be homeless. Quite a bit of people who live on our streets do have resources. Some have places to go, just choose to live on the street. But that's not everyone. We also, through Dr. Washington and through the help of partnership with Sheriff Moore, we also operate a shelter on the city compound grounds. But again, there's only so much space that's there as well. So we have had some challenges of folks living within the woods and now taking up on vacant property and in vacant houses. And so, of course, that creates a challenge. When you have individuals that are on city thoroughfares and things of that nature, just randomly putting tents up, again, it is the outward sign of some of the inner turmoil that's going on within the city. As a police department, we are in a catch-22, just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If we do nothing, the problem only gets larger, and you know, ultimately you're going to allow a issue that's going to balloon much bigger than what it was intended. If you are do any type of enforcement, you're seen as being insensitive to the plight of the folks that are dealing with that issue. So, you know, we are committed to continue to offer services to those individuals, trying to find them viable housing solutions, working with our partners in our community who have some resources or leads on housing, trying to get them shelter, things of that nature. But we also have to be direct, in particular when homeowners, when business approach us about individuals who are doing this. We are having to address those situations, and again, it's not a easy position to be in, but we can't just allow folks to pitch a tent anywhere they want, and we're not going to allow it.
Understood. Thank you. And also, I know that at some point in the future, we're probably going to hear from Chief Mangabat and the fire department, but I know that you're working with the fire department on a specific initiative that is addressing people with a variety of issues, whether it be psychological, substance abuse, things of that nature.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
All right. Our next presentation will be from Ms. Matthews on Portsmouth United.
Good evening. So I'm going to present on Portsmouth United, just give an overview, give some space for questions. And before I do that, I want to just give y'all kind of maybe a bird's eye view, maybe is the best way to say it. Portsmouth United, you'll hear Portsmouth United and Safer Communities kind of interchangeably. Recently, we've been trying to be intentional about saying Portsmouth United. But we were funded through the Safer Communities program to run our program, and Portsmouth United fell right in line with what Safer Communities required for us to do. I'll shout out Chief Jenkins real quick. He went to the CVI lab at University of Chicago, and Portsmouth United was his capstone project. And the project was so solid that it lined up with best practice. So we were able to, use Portsmouth United as a hub to house our Safer Communities program. The funds for Safer Communities was given out to Portsmouth, but other cities as well. The other cities included originally Richmond and Norfolk, and that is supposed to expand to some of our neighboring cities. I believe Newport News and Chesapeake are listed in this next round of funds that are going out. And as a result of them getting the funds, they have been charged with doing something that we did, which was making sure half of those funds were allocated to community-based organizations. So shout out to Chief Jenkins for being setting the trail for other cities. And I certainly y'all can clap a little louder. So I certainly came into this role set up for success. Because of the work that had already took place prior to my entry here in September. So wanted to kind of give y'all that bird's eye view. If you want to go to the next slide, thank you. So Portsmouth United does have strategic goals that are based on safer community standards, but also best practice, and also based on recommendations from the Bloomberg study that we've been talking about for the last week or so. So one of the goals is, and we'll go into more detail, so grow our street outreach team. We may have heard like violence interruption. Violence interruption and street outreach is not quite the same thing, but we are growing that program out where our violence interrupters will be doing light case management, connecting people to resources, et cetera. Community engagement is a component. This not only includes us engaging with our community-based orgs, but also includes us communicating with our citizens about what's happening with Portsmouth United resources, et cetera. release of Portsmouth United website and mobile app, strengthening our partnerships specifically with faith-based organizations, and enhancing crisis stabilization. All right, so community awareness. This was one of the key recommendations from the Bloomberg study, was to get a mobile application, a website live so that people could go to it and get to the resources quickly. So right now we're in the process of building out a website. We have a website link. So the last time I presented on the Portsmouth United kind of overview, we did not have a website link. So we're making progress. That page is being built out kind of bit by bit, day by day. And y'all see that at the end of the presentation. But the point was for it to be a one-stop shop. There's going to be referral links. There's going to be reporting. All those things will be available in that one app. Where we are in the process of the application being developed is we're really in bid stage. We're not spending so much that we have to put out a request for proposals, but we do have to get 3 bids. We have 2 of the 3 bids, and I actually have a demo of how I want the app to look. So if anyone's interested, if you see me after, I can show you a brief little mock-up. Not quite where we want to be, but just give you an idea of how it might look. All right, you can go to the next one. As far as community partnership, what I want to highlight here is Portsmouth United allocated $1.6 million, which was over half of what we were allotted from the state, Safer Communities, to run our program. So those funds went to our community organizations that are already doing the work, and they are going to be providing services, helping us fill gaps that we wouldn't be able to do on our own. So those services include mentorship, case management. Case management is a huge one. Credible messenger programs, employee assistance and empowerment programs. After school programs is a whole nother, section of that as well. So our community-based organizations have been out doing the work, so we wanted to provide support to them. And I think it made a big statement allocating over half of those funds to community-based organizations. So much of an impact that other cities moving forward will have to dedicate over half of their funds as well. There is the next grant cycle. Our application for that next cycle will go live in March, and it'll be active through the end of March. And we're welcoming folks to apply for that opportunity. The other thing I'll say with community partnerships is, we're not limiting this just to organizations who were funded. This is also open to organizations that were not funded that just are interested in being in the room and being a part of the work. Talked a little bit about street outreach, violence interruption. So right now we have 2 violence interrupters. We have a goal to hire 6 additional violence interrupters, building that team out. There will be specific training. We're looking at things that other cities have done, but we're also want to build a program out that we know is going to be beneficial to our city. And speaking of the Bloomberg study, one of the things that we saw in that report was the need for mental health services, right? So we're going to be training our violence interrupters on CBT, making sure they have some motivational interviewing skills, because we know sometimes there's a gap when people need resources. They may feel uncomfortable getting those resources. So being able to do some coaching to get people to that next step will be a big part of what they're doing. Eventually, this will evolve or pair with a call-in program. A call-in program is very similar to custom notifications. We'll be working out how that program will look, because this is a program you have to be very sensitive about building out, because just because it worked in one city does not mean it'll work in our city. So that'll be something I'll be working with Chief and some other folks about how we built that program out. One thing that we're going to add to the call-in program is going to be a shooting review, where we would meet every week and have your key partners in a space probably on a Zoom call. We probably wouldn't meet in person for that one, but we would get in a space and we would share things that we see happening. Usually there's someone from the crime analytics side in that space, and you're building out custom plans to meet the need of folks in the community. Of course, that requires their participation. So you have to build out a good plan. You have to be persistent. It's not as simple as just calling someone in and them saying yes. Sometimes it's continually going to them and reaching out to them and getting your other influencers in that neighborhood involved as well. We are engaging our faith-based organizations. We're partnering with Faiths Behind the Badge, and a program that's been in existence. And we're also just building new partnerships as well. Getting the churches involved is a big part of CVI work. You see in cities like Baltimore how involved some churches are in just mobilizing the community. So we want to do that in Portsmouth as well. We want to empower them, not just with resources, financial resources, but do some training as well. Because what we're hearing from some of the churches is like, we want to help. We just don't know where to start. So we're going to be spending some time doing some training and helping them, coming along kind of like almost like TA, helping them build out some programs that will reach the populations that they already serve. Crisis stabilization. I feel like I've been saying crisis stabilization all day. We just submitted a policy for the chief to review today. So we've been looking at that policy to make sure it's on the website and make sure the application's active. But one thing I want to highlight with crisis stabilization is the importance of case managers. We don't have case managers on our staff, but we're relying on our community partners, victim advocates, case managers that are going to be connecting people with the resources that we have, because they're able to do those initial assessments. They're able to say, okay, we want to relocate someone. They found a home that is $2,000 a month. That case manager will know that's not sustainable for them, and they're able to make recommendations. So we work very closely with our case managers and victim advocates, and we're building out our network of organizations that we're working with as well. But we're able to provide up to $3,500 for general needs, relocation, for safety, emergency hotel stays, and we have been able to successfully stabilize several families since November 24. So really excited about that. And the other part of stabilization is not just, okay, we're going to get you stabilized and get you to another place where maybe some patterns may exist that may create a situation where you're in that situation again, right? The goal is to pair with case management, get the mental health needs, if those needs are, if everyone needs mental health support. So get them connected with mental health support, get them connected with economic development, and get them tapped into those resources. Now, many times people are relocating outside of the city. So we're spending some time building out our networks so that we will be able to connect those folks with people in those other locations. Some other considerations, data analysis and reporting. VCU, through the Safer Communities program, will be providing us with analysis and evaluation services. I will be meeting with them sometime this month. They're going to meet with me first virtually, and then they're going to come do a site visit. So I'll make sure y'all know when that site visit happens. The site visit probably won't be until March. But they're going to come down, get some information, look at the programs, look at the community-based organizations, what programs they're doing, and find ways that we can really get some good data on what's happening. We will also have an annual report that will go out that will be forward-facing, that will show all the things that have happened and that will show numbers, show progress. We talked a little bit about partnerships, but I wanted to highlight, some of the things we're growing out slowly but surely. Civic League engagement is one that was mentioned in the Bloomberg study. I'll be at my first Civic League meeting next week. I'll be at Oaktown Business Association, so I'm starting to make my rounds with the Civic Leagues and find out more about what's happening in those different areas and what support's needed. And then partnering with our city departments. Chief mentioned that earlier. There's some partnerships that already exist. There's some partnerships that could be grown out a little bit further. But making sure this is a collective effort and we're all putting our hands to work how we can to support the community and reduce violence in the city. So that wraps up my presentation. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Just quick follow-up. You mentioned engaging with the civic leagues. I know Chief Jenkins mentioned at his forum that he's going to plan to start having a monthly call with the civic league presidents and vice presidents. When are you planning on starting that, Chief, and how often would it take place?
So that will be the fourth Thursday of every month. And again, it's an opportunity for me to connect with my citizen presence on a variety of issues that relate to their neighborhood. A little bit different, I guess, opportunity that I'm not sure that this is necessarily the vein for that particular thing, if that makes sense.
So I will probably be around for those like calls if they're virtual, right, Chief? I'll be probably on the calls. Usually I'm like always taking notes. But me showing face at civic league meetings and just finding out, being able to present something similar to this, it will be something different.
Absolutely. And just as a follow-up to the other point that was on there earlier on in the presentation about the website and the application platform, assuming once that's built out, there would need to be a marketing plan developed.
Yes.
And I'm sure this task force would be relied upon to help push that out. Were there any specific ideas or concepts that were mentioned inside of the study that you can share with us?
So specifically, one of the things that we plan to do is we have Connect Fest that is in collaboration with economic development. So my goal is to get the mobile app up and running sooner than later so that when we're at Connect Fest, we can start pushing some of that stuff out. Because what I think happens is no one's really necessarily going to the website to see what's happening, right? So you have to really get the information out, be forward facing. So we're going to actually start doing some more branded things, like, making sure we have like a one sheeter with what does Portsmouth United provide, have a QR code that gets you to the mobile app. So we're still building that part out, but I know a huge part of the marketing efforts is going to be very forward-facing out in the community, because I'm not going to assume that the lady who's been living in Prentice Park for 30 years is going to go to the website and see the Portsmouth United app. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful to have a one-sheeter soon so that this body could be able to share that information out, but also encouraging all of us to attend those weekly meetings on Thursdays so that we're aware of what's going on with Portsmouth United as well.
And there will be a social media push for the grant application, and when Portsmouth United mobile app is out, it'll be on social media as well. I think more people go there for information too. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. All right. Our next agenda item is to have a discussion on the presentations that were held today. So are there any questions or follow-up questions to what the chief shared? He went into detail at his quarterly forum on some of the information that he shared with us today. Were there any questions or follow-up information from anyone? Yes.
Just for everyone's awareness that several of us have been attending the weekly Thursday night Portsmouth United meetings, and it's very eye-opening, it's very educational. We went over a heat map at the last meeting, basically showing where the nexus is of a lot of the issues and problems, and targeting or showing how the police department is targeting resources to specific neighborhoods based on a red, yellow, green, literally looks like a heat map, for lack of a better description. But for any of my fellow commissioners on the board who have the opportunity, Thursday nights, you're going to get a lot out of it if you have the opportunity to go to those meetings.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Actually, if I can ask either our city council liaison, Councilman Hugo, to come up and share one of the conversations we had last week during our work session on what the next couple of meetings are going to look like for the commission so that the public is aware.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Evening, task force members. So we met together, myself, Councilman Tillage, City Manager, Chief Jenkins, and your chair, along with Ms. Matthews, a week ago to discuss content in the upcoming agendas. In particular, while we're in the process of finding and hiring a consultant to come alongside you all to help build out the integrated plan that we set you in motion to accomplish. We concluded that there's a lot going on around the city that some know some about, but most don't know everything about. But we also know that in the middle of this issue, the chief knows quite a lot. Ms. Matthews knows quite a lot. And the other conversation that we had centered around the Bloomberg-Harvard study that was done a few years ago, reported out in the summer of 2022. And that effort actually had a city task force off implementing, working on some of the recommendations. Because of the turnover in city managers, that work basically came to a halt, or at least a pause. And the chief and Ms. Matthews have picked up some of those recommendations in the work that they're doing. Some of the other department heads may have continued with elements, but the task force, the group that was working across the city departments, stopped. And so we thought it important that we first make sure that you all know what was in the Bloomberg-Harvard study. Important because the Bloomberg-Harvard study was compiled by an intern from Harvard who actually gathered data. So while a lot of what's in the Bloomberg-Harvard study maybe is intuitive, for instance, as the chief mentioned, we know that there are pockets even in neighborhoods. Okay, so intuitively we knew that. The data that the Bloomberg-Harvard intern gathered helped to pinpoint not only what was going on there, but the age groups that were being impacted as victims, the age groups that were being impacted as perpetrators, and some insight into the people that were involved in crime. And in particular, then studying kind of the socioeconomic issues behind. And not surprisingly, the Bloomberg-Harvard intern concluded the locations where we see the most criminal activity are also the neighborhoods in our city that are suffering most with poverty. And so kind of back to what was your tasking from the outset? Well, the chief's got the police tasking. And Portsmouth United is the linkage between the police tasking and the community groups as it relates to policing and violence interrupting. But there are these other elements that contribute to the systemic issues of crime, primarily the elements of poverty, that we need a broader plan. And so you all understanding what did the Bloomberg-Harvard study reveal with data is important and foundational as you set off to build out elements to tackle those issues. In addition to that, back in the fall, November, I think, at one of our city council work sessions, we had a representative from the local health department who came and provided basically a city health assessment. And so we intend to tee up for a coming agenda, you all getting the same assessment brief that city council received during our work session, so that you at least know as much as we know about the work that the health department has done to study issues. And this is not just health per se, sickness and disease. This includes the work that you all are doing, access to food and some of those other issues that contribute to the health or lack of health in certain parts of our city. So we think it's important that you get the same briefing that we received at our work session. We'll put that on an upcoming agenda and have the health department come and provide you, and we'll forward a copy of that assessment to you all to do some homework ahead of time. But the point here with Bloomberg, Harvard, and the health assessment of the city, these are all foundational pieces of information that hopefully put you all on a level footing to kind of understand what do we know about the problem that y'all are working on. Because there's a lot that's already known, and we just need to get it in front of you so that you have the benefit of knowing what work has already been done, so you don't go back and repeat that work, but instead build on that work moving forward. And again, so we'll do this now, get the foundation laid now with real data, so that when the consultant does come aboard and you start doing the work to build out an integrated plan to tackle these issues, you're building on top of work that's already been completed, and in some cases, effort that's already been completed. So I'll share with you a recent example. So this past week, we had Congressman Scott come and visit several of us in city leadership. We got into a discussion with the congressman about summer programs for kids. If you'll remember, this past summer, City Council funded the Summer Raise program with the goal of putting our kids in summer camp and our more senior kids, our high schoolers, in jobs, internships. And the goal obviously was to give kids something to do during the summertime so that they're being productive and not getting in trouble. So Congressman Scott gave the city manager and the council reps that were in the room quite a challenge. He asked, what would it take to get every kid in Portsmouth involved in some kind of summer program? Well, we know that the Summer Race program doesn't have the capacity to do that, but we also know that there are a lot of summer camp programs that are being run by grassroots organizations that are engaged in Portsmouth United, or grassroots organizations that are not yet engaged with Portsmouth United. But to the point of having an app that becomes a one-stop shop, it could be mighty powerful if that one-stop shop included the access for kids and their parents or grandparents to go to right now, because people are starting to think right now about what's going to happen in June when their kids get out of school. What's going to happen, and how do we get our kids plugged into those things? And so having an app that provides one-stop shop to communicate what's going on around the community. And this is just one example, but the work that Ms. Matthews is doing is going to have a bunch of one-stop shops, because we know, particularly for people who are looking for better employment, who are looking for sources of food, who are looking for sources of behavioral health, looking for sources of social services, we're missing those opportunities today because people just don't know what's available to them and how to get there. And so having access to that one-stop shop will be critically important as you all continue to do your work. So having her get the groundwork laid to provide the platform is going to be really important, but it's also going to be important as you all do your work to start thinking about, well, what are the other one-stop shopping places, things that we ought to include in that haven't been included when we laid the groundwork. So those are the things that have gone into getting you here tonight, gone into the thought of what's going to be in your agenda in the March meeting and moving forward. And as always, as you all have ideas, particularly when you go home tonight thinking about what's been discussed tonight, if you have ideas, your chair is the collector of those ideas along with Ms. Matthews. Please let them know, share your ideas, your thoughts on potential agenda items going forward, and copy the city manager and Councilman Tillage and I so that we can work together to make sure that if there are other folks from the city staff or from around the city that need to come up here and address the group to fill in the foundational information that you all need to do your jobs, that we have the opportunity between now and next month to reach out and get those people lined up to come and address you and provide the educational information you need and also the ability to answer questions. A long story for a short question, but hopefully that addresses what you were looking for.
Yeah.
And I'll take any questions that any of you might have for me.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman. Any questions?
It's always a race between us. Thank you for that. That was helpful information. I did miss a meeting, and so I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed, I think, personally. But I just need a clarifying question. Did I hear you say that there was already an existing task force that was inter-city department folks that were addressing some of this, and that was sort of put on pause because of transitioning?
Yeah, specifically a group of department heads in the city team that were tagged as a task force to work on the recommendations that came out of the Bloomberg-Harvard study.
And is that team back functioning?
It is not.
Is there intention for that team to come back? I only ask that because I don't believe in working in silos. So I'd like to make sure that if there's another group of folks that are out there with the skill set to have the conversation, that we are sharing information.
So I'm going to put the city manager on the spot because it was the city staff that staffed that team when it was operating a couple of years ago. I know the city manager has been thinking about where and how to plug city staff folks into this work. Would you like to comment on kind of picking up the Harvard Bloomberg work?
Fortunately, I can do it from here. What I like to do is augment this group with city staff. No, I wouldn't stand up a whole new team trying to do the same thing that you guys are doing. That team kind of went defunct before I got here, so I wouldn't try to put that back in place. But what we can offer is whatever expertise you need from the professionals that work with me. We absolutely make ourselves available to you and this group to help you along.
That's what I wanted to say, but you needed to hear it from him. They work for him.
Yeah, and I think I've mentioned several times that there are a couple of examples of bodies just like this one that comprise of folks from the city, citizens like ourselves, but also there are a number of city officials that sit on that body to make sure they're informing the citizens that are doing the work as well. So I think that would be a great idea if we could do that as well. Yeah. Any other questions?
Just a question for clarification. I know last year with the Summer Raise program, that was entirely city funded, if I understand it. It was involving city facilities. The first thing that pops into my mind is that we have a lot of schools and other programs here in the area that are faith-based organizations, things like that, that take the summers off, that may actually be interested in continuing to roll through the summer using the exact same facilities that are going to sit empty for a couple of months. And I just am curious, as we begin thinking about that, what are our restrictions? What are the restrictions of spending monies city monies on hiring what would essentially be faith-based organizations. You could think of several, who run schools. They run private schools, they run daycares, they run things like that in the city. And what are our restrictions if we even head in that direction? And I open that to yourself or the city manager.
So I guess I would say, let's do first things first. We don't know what we don't know about what's out there, because there's a lot of stuff out there that is already being set in motion in anticipation of upcoming summer camps. And so part of the challenge that we have is to get our arms around what's already going on. And then where are the gaps? And this is where the collaboration between this group and Portsmouth United and the city manager's staff and perhaps Portsmouth Public Schools, certainly the collaboration with Portsmouth United into our faith-based organizations, and also potentially collaboration into our civic leagues, because so we've even had civic leagues who have set summer things in motion for their kids. So there's lots of opportunity out there. We got to get our arms around what's already working and what's left to be done. One of the recommendations that was in Bloomberg Harvard is don't peanut butter spread the goodness across the entire city, because there are places in the city where things are already in better shape than other places in the city where they're not. And so some of this is targeting those areas that we know from the heat map discussion that you shared, targeting those areas, and in particular the kids in those areas that are not having access, not getting access to the kind of programs that we're talking to. And so as much as I'd love to throw money at this problem so that we let every kid in the city be accommodated, first things first, let's figure out the kids who are most in need and target them with the capabilities that we have, and then build on that. And that's going to be work, hopefully, that you all take aboard as you build out a plan. But like I said, there's a bunch of great recommendations in the Bloomberg Harvard study, that being one where we don't need to peanut butter spread. We need to be surgical in our approach.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Simpson.
Yeah, I'm also had a comment. So last year, we partnered with PRHA. We're to say that probably would be a good idea to reach out to PRHA as far as especially targeting those kids, because of course, we could only take 40 kids from them. You're talking about multiple neighborhoods. It was probably quadruple that number of kids that probably needed services. But like I said, we was only able to get 40. So I do think reaching out to PRHA and bringing them to the table, especially when it comes to, for the summer. And is it a timeline as far as the jobs for the teens?
Yeah,
are we
the
trying to-
timeline's between now and June when the kids are looking
Yeah.
for jobs.
So- and the only reason why I said
now's
it-
the time is really the timeline that we need to be working on.
Because she said something about Connect Fest. So we have an event with the Connect Fest in April. It's a youth job fair though, and it's with Ms. Briggs. So it's kind of like, and we was trying to get some of the Parks and Rec. I think they gave, how many jobs they gave away last year? It was a lot.
Yeah,
It was a lot.
130.
It was
Yeah.
a lot. Right. So would that number increase this year?
To be determined.
Thank you. We're in the budget process now.
Right.
I'm going to make sure I say this right. It's unfair to think the city has really deep pockets and there's no end to what we can finance. That is absolutely not a true statement. When we go through this budget process that we're going on through now, we're coming up with what our spending plan is for the entire year, and trying to put all the things necessary to run a city in a budget is a pretty difficult task. And one thing I do want to make sure that people understand about a municipal budget is when we come up and say we're We've planned our spending for the full year. We don't have all that money in the bank on July 1. We're looking at what our revenue is going to be for the entire year. So I can't spend everything in July because I don't, even though there's a large number that we're going to spend over the course of the year, that money's not in the bank in July. You know what I mean? So as we're thinking about what we're going to do, now is the time for, if this group has some suggestions about things that's going to be budgetary, now is the time to get those ideas on the table so that we can get it in the budget that don't start till July rather, I'm sorry. Okay. And one more thing, and the chief reminded me that portions of that team that was stood up as the department head task force will be present at your meeting next month. So you have an opportunity to engage with them on some of those conversations that you're talking about.
And I guess just to follow up on the question that you asked, Mr. Swinson, so 130 kids were employed as interns around the city last year. We learned some things from that. Good news is we had 130 kids employed. Bad news is wasn't exactly productive employment for all 130 kids. And so is that the kind of employment that we want? Well, if we're just paying kids to get them off the street, that's fine, but that's not really pouring goodness into all 130 kids. Now, having said that, again, what else is out there that we could be inviting kids to do? Well, we got a huge business community in Portsmouth. Where are they? Well, we haven't invited them into this conversation yet. So task force, roll up your sleeves. You all know folks in the business community, there's opportunity for us to expand and give kids meaningful employment, meaningful opportunities during the summertime, along the lines of the program that you guys have been working with PRHA. There are other things like that available, and we just got to tease them out of the community and then get them into a one-stop shop so that we can connect kids that need that opportunity with the opportunities.
I was talking to Mr. Edmondson. Do you think his office could help with that?
Who?
Was it Frankie?
Oh, worth asking the question.
Right.
I know that the treasurer does some internships, but I'm not sure about revenue. I can ask.
I think
No,
the question
just
you're asking is how connecting to businesses.
Right,
Oh.
identifying businesses,
yeah.
right, from that standpoint.
I mean,
Well,
he's,
he has the business license.
right, he's got the library of business licenses,
You
so,
get, like, even for us to, like, if we're trying to put something out, maybe we could put it out through him,
yeah.
that he can send it to the businesses and whoever want to participate. You know what I'm saying? I just felt like that would be, instead of us going, like you said, roll your sleeves up and us going door to door, or even just reaching out to people, maybe, like you said, he has the Rolodex of all the businesses in the city. If we could put something out through his channel, then maybe it'll be a little easier to get feedback that way.
Yeah, so when I say roll your sleeves up, I mean, so does that mean you're gonna go talk to Mr. Edmondson and ask him that question?
Yeah, I asked him, but it
Perfect.
was like, we was like, you know how it would, like,
Yeah,
I see you and I
perfect.
try
That's
to.
That's exactly the
Yeah,
kind,
that's right.
the kind of work that we want from you
Right.
all, to roll your
Right,
sleeves
no,
up
for
and get
sure.
engaged like that, absolutely.
Any other comments?
I have a question. In regards to the consultant that we're looking into bringing on, what would their role be, given we have the Bloomberg study, we have the city council liaisons, we have Portsmouth United and all of the resources that they'll be bringing in? What would that role look like for that individual, and what is the status of that?
Okay, so first, the role. We're looking for a consultant that has helped groups like yours in other places build out an integrated plan to address the systemic issues that underlie crime. Okay, so that's the role. Somebody that's got the benefit of having done it someplace else, knows how to help you build a plan, knows how to help you set that plan into execution, And remember now, kind of the conversation we're having, this isn't just the city managers folks that got work to do. Okay, there's engagement with the business community, there's engagement with the faith-based organizations, there's engagement with the civic leagues. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that needs to be pulled together in an integrated plan to address housing, healthcare, schooling, jobs, food. Okay, all of those things are the systemic issues that your integrated plan hopefully is going to address. So that's the purpose. They know how to do that. The ones that we're hoping will respond to the RFP. Now, status of the RFP, city manager, I'll let Mr. Carter speak to where we stand.
The RFP has been released, and we've advertised it to several organizations. We even reached out personally to some organizations, but I don't know where the responses are yet. I don't think it closes until the middle of the month, so I'll reach out to our procurement office and see if we have any responses yet. But there won't be a total response that I can give you until after the RFP closes.
I think, though, we hope that whoever we responds will be procured and on board to help us starting in the April-May timeframe.
If this closes in the middle of February, it's going to take about 30 days to get through the procurement process and negotiating with the actual selected company. So probably around the beginning of April will be a safe time to say that we'll have somebody on board.
Last question in regards to that. Would that person operate in like a full-time capacity? Like, would they be taking a lot, like what you just said, that sounds like a lot to do, and it sounds like it would take a lot of the load off of us, not discounting us from this process, but a lot of the legwork that needs to be done outside of these walls. Would that person be responsible for doing that?
Well, so we're all responsible for rolling up our sleeves and getting the work done. I mean,
Right.
this person is coming in to advise, not to be the only person doing the work.
Correct.
Okay, so remember, Ms. Matthews and the Portsmouth United team already doing a bunch of work, but we have lots of other work to do. And some of that will be done by the city staff, part of their day job. But frankly, some of it's going to be the engagement that the task force sets in motion through their planning with the working committees. Okay, so kind of back to our discussion at the last meeting, important you committee chairs that have working committees get those committees staffed, because ultimately there's going to need to be work done in those working committees. That's why they're called working committees. So getting your teams staffed up, and then in collaboration with the consultant, kind of providing the chair and you all advice at the task force level, but also the chairs of the working committees with the advice on how to build out the plan and then set that plan into motion. So we all got work to do.
Yeah, I think that was an important question that you asked, specifically because in the memo that I sent out a few weeks ago, I talked about how some of our initial meetings were to lay the groundwork for the work that we're supposed to be doing. And if we don't know the workflow of how we're supposed to operate, then we can't correctly go out and do the job of the task force. And so I think that was an important question, and thank you for answering that.
And again, why bring a consultant in? Because they've done this with groups like you in other places and successfully built the plan and helped that group get the plan executed. At the end of the day, we don't want a plan that we stick on a shelf and gathers dust. We got plenty of those in town. We want a plan that is actionable, and we get that action set in motion.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So, just to recap, I guess for the Portsmouth United, those meetings that you'll be sitting in with the Civic League, would that be to update them on what Portsmouth United is doing?
It'll be an overview similar to
Okay.
what I presented tonight.
Okay. Is there a plan, I guess, to go into some of the public housing areas and do the same thing? Okay. Can we Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I'm planning on getting involved right away on the very things you're discussing with the Old Town Business Association, with Portsmouth Partnership, which represents many of the different businesses, impactful businesses here in the area. I was just requesting that I get a chance to sit with the city manager for a second after this, make sure that I understand what it is that I'm asking of people and what is going to be available, if anything, funding-wise and stuff like that. So I just wanted to make sure that I get you before you get out of here. That's all.
Great. Thank you.
It may be best to ask that question so that everybody hears, because if I just tell you, that don't help.
Sure, yeah.
You know?
In other words, what I'm getting at is, I know that there was monies that were put aside for like the summer program and I'm not sure where the monies were coming from for, well, it was just city funds for hiring those 130 interns. But are we talking about potentially saying that the city is going to fund folks but have them interning in local businesses? I know that there are programs like that we've used in the past, and is that where we're going with this? That we could say to a business, hey, listen, this is going to be a city employee, but we want them to do something impactful in your business, not busy work, but something that will actually let them build a network, help them build references, have them build skills, things like that.
The short answer is no.
Okay.
The long answer is what I would prefer is to partner with businesses so that maybe they would do a match. If we hire 5, they hire 5.
Mm-hmm.
If we hire 10, they hire 10, or some combination of that, so we can exponentially have more kids involved. So if we only have the funds to pay for 130, whether they work for me or work for you, it's still only 130. But if I get you to fund half, as many as I fund, now we got 260 kids working. So that's the way I would try to put that out.
And can the city, the schools, somehow between the two, help advertise, help get lists of kids who are looking for summer work, things of that nature?
All right. Absolutely, but what I prefer not to do is commit to something without a plan.
Sure.
So we can talk about the concept of this, but what I have to commit to is a fully built out plan. So the concept sounds great, but we really have to work through what the plan is so we have something to execute and not just a concept. You know what I mean?
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, thank you. Ms. Matthews, there's a few announcements on the agenda. If you could read through them for us.
Yes, so I wanted to let everyone know, the task force know that the SharePoint site is active. Please check it out. Let me know if you're having any issues accessing the SharePoint. Right now, there's 2 documents in there, one of them being the Bloomberg study. We were also asked by our city manager to plan for a joint meeting on June 9th. And a few folks have responded to me, but, after this meeting, I'll kind of come to y'all individually and find out your availability for that meeting. Also, we mentioned the ride-along opportunity a few times. I do have those applications with me tonight. If you have already done your application but have not sent me your ID, I need your ID so we can get that processed. And that's all the announcements I have.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. All right. I think that's the end of our agenda. Our next meeting will take place on Monday, March 3rd at 6 p.m., and that agenda will be sent out ahead of time. I think there were a number of items that was discussed tonight that will give us some things to check out on our own time in between today and our next meeting. And so I think we have some homework to do, along with taking a look at the Bloomberg study, which is at least 60 pages, I believe. So we have some work to do outside of here. If there aren't any other comments or questions, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, you have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, have a good evening, everyone.